everyone, a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas. I'm Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight is on the latest coming in from Iran, where the protests continue, and US President Donald Trump has now warned that the US is locked and loaded to respond if the Iranian authorities kill peaceful protesters. Tehran has hit back, calling any US interference a red line. We are decoding all of this for you in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, Ukraine bracing for Vladimir Putin's revenge after Kiev strikes Kherson. We tell you all about what's happening on the battlefield. Hindu businessman set on fire as anti-Hindu violence rises in Bangladesh. We get the complete story. All this and more coming up. In a matter of just 3 days, US President Donald Trump has openly threatened Iran twice. First from Florida, standing alongside the Israeli Prime Minister, remember, and then once again from Washington. Trump warned Tehran that the United States is, quote, locked and loaded to respond if the Islamic Republic kills its own citizens. That's the warning coming in from the United States. Those citizens, remember, have been taking to the streets protesting for days now against the economic instability, the soaring prices, and a collapsing currency. And posting on his Truth Social platform, Trump warned, I'm quoting, if Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go, quote unquote. Not mincing any words there clearly, the warning also triggered an immediate and rather furious response from Iran. A senior advisor to the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has said that any US intervention would be, quote unquote, exposed to a response, calling Iran's security a red line. Iran's top security official also hit back, warning that US interference in Iran's internal affairs would destabilize the entire region and destroy American interests. Larijani added that the US president should be mindful of the safety of American soldiers. Trump's warning comes even as the Iranian leaders have publicly acknowledged the depths of the public anger on the ground. President Masoud Pezeshkian and senior officials have described peaceful protests over Iran's battered economy as legitimate and understandable. But they've also warned of a firm crackdown. WION has been tracking those protests very closely. The clashes between the protesters and security forces erupted in several parts. At least 7 people have been killed. The first reported death since the unrest escalated. It began in Tehran, remember, where shopkeepers shut their businesses in protest over high prices and the economic stagnation. And the movement has since spread to at least 15 cities, mostly in western Iran, with protesters now raising political demands. On Thursday, President Pezeshkian said that he and his government would, quote, end up in hell if they fail to address the economic hardship. Yet on Friday, the tone hardened. A regional prosecutor warned that participation in what Iran calls illegal gatherings would be treated as a crime, with courts acting with the greatest firmness. Meanwhile, Iran's economy remains under severe strain, crippled by years of international sanctions over the country's nuclear program, runaway inflation, a collapsing currency. The unrest also coming at a moment of regional vulnerability for Tehran after months of conflict involving its allies in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria. The Iranian state media saying that the current protests are smaller than the nationwide uprising of 2022, sparked by the death in custody of Mahsa Amini. But with Washington now issuing threats and Tehran drawing a red line, the risk of domestic unrest spiraling into a wider confrontation is once again mounting. Will America send its troops to Iran over this? Will the US and Iran go to war over this? It remains to be seen where things go. Shifting focus now, Ukraine is not just preparing for the next strike, it's bracing for the Russian president's revenge, one likely designed to inflict heavy losses and send out a chilling message across the battlefield and beyond. We are saying this because Moscow has publicly warned Kiev that it will face inevitable retaliation for its attack on civilians in the Kherson region, while Ukraine's own spy agency has predicted that Russia will soon conduct operations that could lead to mass casualties. And on the ground, the situation is already severe for Kiev. Russia now holds roughly a fifth of Ukraine's territory. The pressure has been building along several key fronts, especially in the east and south. Analysts are saying Ukrainian forces face larger numbers, heavier weapons, and relentless assaults, forcing the units to fight under constant strain as the Russian forces continue to push forward. The latest attacks showing the intensity of that campaign. A wave of Shahed drones pounded Zaporizhia, crippling parts in what officials describe as one of the most significant barrages in years. The first blast reportedly showered shrapnel over cars and a residential block. A second strike hit a shopping mall, triggering a fierce blaze. Ukraine also reporting a Russian strike in the Kharkiv region that injured one person and killed several animals inside a wildlife park. In the latest, Ukrainian authorities claiming that two Russian ballistic missiles struck a 5-story residential building in Kharkiv, injuring at least 15 people, with many feared to be trapped under the rubble. These strikes coming only hours after Moscow accused Ukraine of launching a deadly drone strike on a hotel in the Kherson region, where people had gathered to celebrate the new year. Russia says at least 27 people died in what it called a terrorist attack in the Black Sea town of Korli, a territory captured by Russia, remember, since early 2022. Kiev, meanwhile, firmly denies targeting civilians, insisting its forces strike only military sites. So that's where things stand. Now, a video shared by the local governor shows a building gutted by flames. As you can see, rubble piled high, charred debris scattered across what appears to be blood stains on the ground. At least one covered body lying at the scene, reportedly. What's the Kremlin saying? It says President Putin has received briefings on the incident and on the ongoing investigation. Russia's foreign ministry has condemned the attack and is warning Ukraine of consequences. This escalation follows claims from Moscow that Ukrainian drones tried to strike Putin's residence in the Novgorod region. Russia's defense ministry released footage of debris and flight paths, saying its systems destroyed the drones. Ukraine calls the accusation fiction. Russian officials, meanwhile, now claim they recovered data from one downed drone, alleging it shows the aircraft had locked onto the presidential compound, and say they shared that material with the United States. Listen to this.
A decryption of the memory contents of the navigation controllers of these drones, performed by specialists from Russian intelligence agencies, has irrefutably confirmed that the target of the attack was the complex of buildings housing the Russian president's residence in the Novgorod region.
And as winter deepens, so does the tension. Ukraine reinforces defenses, Russia signals retaliation, both sides preparing for what comes next. A new year, but unfortunately the same old story continuing in Bangladesh. Hindus under threat in the country. And as this new year starts, a disturbing pattern continuing, a spike in violence against Hindus and other minorities there, which is raising serious questions over the situation on the ground, the law, order situation, the political will as well, ahead of the February elections. We are starting off with a shocking attack. A 50-year-old, a Hindu man, a local medical shop owner, was attacked late on December 31 while returning home. According to reports, he was seriously injured, left fighting for his life after he was assaulted by a group. He survived and was later shifted to a Dhaka Medical College hospital. As his condition worsened, his family says he was a simple man with no enemies, asking a single question: why him and where is the justice? And this is not an isolated incident. In just the last 2 weeks, multiple attacks on Hindus have been reported across Bangladesh. On December 24th, a 29-year-old was killed by a mob. Days earlier, December 18, a 25-year-old was killed following false blasphemy allegations at his workplace. The case sent shock waves across the region, sparking international concern. Further back by a few weeks, a 1971 veteran, Jogesh Roy, and his wife were found dead with their throats slit. Back in April, another Hindu man was abducted from his home, beaten to death. While the UNIS government condemned the killing, it was quick to insist there was no communal angle. But the facts on the ground tell a far more disturbing story. The Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities has documented 73 blasphemy-related incidents across 32 districts between January and November 2025. 73 is the number they've given. This is not isolated, of course. This is not coincidental. This is a pattern, clearly. The numbers exposing the lies of the UNIS government. New Delhi has voiced grave concern over the hostility against minorities in Bangladesh, including Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, saying it is closely monitoring the developments. This is not just a human rights issue for India, but a regional stability concern after all. The situation has worsened to the point that India has shut down its visa application center in Chittagong, that too indefinitely, as New Delhi cites serious security concerns with radical elements targeting minorities and creating chaos. And this has also made normal consular operations impossible. Relations between India and Bangladesh, remember, have grown noticeably frosty since the Mohammad Yunus-led interim government came to power. Critics are saying the government has failed to protect the minorities and has instead empowered radical groups, including the Jamaat-e-Islami, which was previously banned for terror links under the Sheikh Hasina government, remember, and will contest the upcoming polls. There is also growing alarm over the UNIS government's pro-Pakistan tilt. High-level political and military engagements with Pakistan, reports of ISI presence have raised fears that extremist elements are being emboldened while UNIS looks the other way. Former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina accused the interim regime of failing to protect religious minorities, and allowing extremists to shape foreign and domestic policy. And she has warned that attacks on minorities, media houses, and even diplomatic interests are being carried out with impunity. Even as the External Affairs Minister of India recently visited Dhaka for a high-profile funeral and held political meetings, the message from New Delhi has been clear that New Delhi expects responsibility, accountability, and action from Dhaka. Yunus says his government is committed to protecting minorities, but on the streets, on the ground, the fear narrating a different story, one that speaks louder. And there is nothing noble about what is happening under a Nobel Peace Laureate's watch in Bangladesh. Moving on for now to Venezuela, it is fast turning into the newest battleground in global power politics. What started out as a pursuit of a single oil tanker is now drawing in the US, Russia, China, with President Trump at the center of this rapidly escalating conflict. Let's just break this down for you bit by bit. The United States is chasing a fleeing oil tanker in the Atlantic, but this is no ordinary ship. This is no routine interception. The tanker, originally sailing from Iran to Venezuela to pick up oil, is now at the center of this diplomatic flashpoint between the US and Russia. Russia has formally asked the United States to stop its pursuit, claiming that the vessel under Russian protection, the ship's crew even painted a Russian flag on its hull reportedly and registered it overnight in Russia under a new name reportedly. But Washington is not convinced. US authorities saying the tanker was flying no valid flag when intercepted, calling it a stateless vessel and therefore subject to seizure under international law. For President Donald Trump, this pursuit is part of a much bigger campaign, remember. The Trump administration has stepped up pressure on Venezuela's oil lifeline, imposing fresh sanctions, boarding tankers, enforcing what critics are calling a de facto blockade. The target is absolutely clear. It's President Nicolas Maduro. But then Russia is also pushing back, warning that US sanctions in Venezuela risk escalating tensions at a time when Trump is also trying to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. And China is also watching all of this very closely. Washington has now sanctioned Chinese companies and tankers linked to Venezuelan oil exports. A rare move, a very crucial one that also sends out a clear message to China. China, remember, is Venezuela's biggest oil customer. And Venezuelan oil, much of it sold quietly, helps keep Maduro's government afloat, just to put this simply. Beijing has condemned US ship seizures as unilateral bullying and a violation of international law. The risk is no longer just in theory or on paper. US forces have already seized 2 tankers, another turned back after being pursued reportedly. Venezuela has also ordered its navy to escort oil shipments and is considering placing troops on board. And that raises the possibility of a direct naval confrontation. So that is why all of this is significant. What started out as sanctions enforcement is now edging towards a global power tussle, with oil routes, warships, diplomatic threats colliding in the Caribbean and the Atlantic. From Venezuela to Ukraine, President Trump is reopening multiple fronts, it seems, and Venezuela is no longer just a crisis story in Latin America. It's becoming the latest arena where the world's biggest powers are testing each other's red lines. Oil, sanctions, sovereignty colliding at sea. And before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is coming up for you on the show tonight. In a major move, Iran has decided to accept cryptocurrency as payment for weapon exports. We tell you the reasons behind that decision. Would you consider getting your eyelids altered to look younger or look a different way? We tell you about a procedure gaining popularity even among young women. In a shocking case, circumcision left over 40 men dead in South Africa. We get you the complete story and what exactly happened. All this and more coming up. America is rewriting rocket history. The age of the chemical rocket, it seems, is over as America prepares to ignite a nuclear furnace in the stars. In fact, a move to greenlight a radical new engine that promises to shrink the solar system and also secure the high ground of the second space race stage. Our next story.
Crashing mission risk. Some see this as America's next giant leap, a new piece in the evolving space race with China and Russia. Others warn of complexity and safety hurdles. But for now, Washington is pouring resources into systems that could make nuclear propulsion a reality, taking humanity across the solar system faster than ever. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
This is a story that should set off alarm bells about technology, about safety, and about how unregulated artificial intelligence use can be a tool to perhaps harass and even humiliate people. Indian Member of Parliament Priyanka Chaturvedi wrote to the IT Minister flagging the misuse of AI tools on social media, specifically targeting Grok, the AI chatbot integrated into X. Her allegations sent out major shockwaves. The MP basically raised alarm over women's photos being uploaded without consent and being fed into AI prompts. Users asking Grok to remove clothing, alter bodies, generate sexualized images. This is gross digital harassment. Priyanka Chaturvedi calls it a direct attack on women's privacy and dignity. This is digital manipulation and cyber harassment. The center has stepped in. The ministry, in fact, has asked X to immediately review the functioning of its Grok AI chatbot. The minister has directed the platform to examine allegations of misuse, particularly the generation of explicit and sexualized content, and to submit an action-taken report within 72 hours. But this trend of such generative misuse emerged publicly in December 2025. Users on X reportedly started posting real photos of women, mostly private individuals, and openly prompting Grok to alter their appearance, make them more suggestive, even remove clothing reportedly. The generated images appeared in public. The public replied threats were viewable, shareable, and irreversible. You see, the impact of such technology is deeply felt with strong debates on consent, ethics, safeguards. But here, in India, where large sections of society, including Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, who are still adapting to the use of digital platforms, the damage can be far more severe and more concerning. Reputations can be destroyed overnight. Women can be targeted, shamed, silenced without ever knowing who even did that. And that's where big tech comes under the scanner. Platforms like these, systems like these, have embedded generative AI directly into social feeds in some cases without adequate safeguards, without real-time oversight, and without clear accountability. This is not the first such controversy. In 2025 alone, the chatbot has generated abusive language, extremist content, anti-Semitic posts reportedly, and even praise for Hitler. It triggered regulatory scrutiny in India, Europe, Turkey. A Turkish court even ordered Grok to be blocked after it generated insulting content about Erdogan. So where does India stand legally? India lacks single law against AI and deepfakes, but there are laws that could crack the whip. India does not yet have a single dedicated law, basically, to deal with AI or deepfakes, but there are laws that can and should crack the whip under the IT Act. Several sections addressing privacy violations and non-consensual sharing of images. The Digital Personal Data Protection Act goes further. It says consent is non-negotiable, non-consensual. Deepfakes are a data breach with penalties that can go up to 250 crore rupees. The new Act, which came into effect in 2024, also steps in 3 sections under the BNS, addresses defamation, cheating by personation, using digital tools, and more likely speaks on the misinformation drive as well. The laws, of course, are there. What is missing is a single stringent framework, basically, which is specific to AI. The cultural context also matters. In a country like India, where social stigma is real in some cases, digital shaming can have life-altering consequences. The cost of inaction is all too high. The question still is, will platforms take responsibility? Will lawmakers be forced to step in harder? Because if AI is allowed to run amok, technology will not empower, it will end up exploiting and being used to harass people. Moving on to Iran now, it's reeling from the currency collapse. We've been telling you about this. The sanctions have been debilitating. Financial transactions are under intense scrutiny. And as the country is now engulfed by protests, the Iranian government has found a way out, it seems, to circumvent the economic restrictions. Iran, in a major move, has decided to accept cryptocurrency as payment for weapon exports. The Defense Ministry's Export Center has explicitly mentioned crypto as a valid mode of payment for countries that want to buy advanced weapon systems, including ballistic missiles, drones, and warships. Now, if we go back to January last year, Iran's top internet governance body proposed facilitating international trade through crypto. Estimates indicating that Iran is the 5th largest Bitcoin mining hub globally. Crypto is increasingly being viewed as a hedge against the devaluation of Iran's currency in a way. Recently, it crashed to 1.42 million Iranian riyals to the US dollar. And a year ago, it stood at 820,000 Iranian riyals. Iran has often been accused by the West of using crypto to circumvent sanctions and fund armed rebels in West Asia. As early as June 2023, Israel seized digital wallets containing millions of dollars in crypto belonging to Iran's Quds Force and the Hezbollah. Also, 2 Iranian nationals were, remember, sanctioned by the US in September last year for reportedly facilitating the purchase of over $100 million of cryptocurrency. Now, for the Iranian regime, the oil sales recently, Israel seized 187 crypto wallets allegedly belonging to Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Iran's move assumes significance as protests have now spread to different parts. People have been up in arms over a massive rise in the cost of living. 7 people have already lost their lives. Iran is also facing a growing threat of US intervention, with Trump declaring that the killing of peaceful protesters by Iran's security forces will not be tolerated. All of this leads to bigger questions. Can Iran's enhanced crypto push actually keep its economy afloat? Will it be enough to reduce the impact of the sanctions? The people of Iran are still waiting for an answer. As China ramps up military drills around Taiwan earlier, a silent, more dangerous battle underway inside the self-ruled island. According to a report by The Telegraph, China is running an aggressive espionage campaign, buying access to Taiwan's most sensitive defense secrets, not with missiles, but with money. According to the report, in 2022, a Taiwanese marine sergeant was deep in debt and desperate for cash. The Telegraph reporting, Chen was approached through an online loan scheme run by operatives linked to the Chinese state. The offer was pretty simple, reportedly. Hand over classified military information and the debt would disappear. He agreed, reportedly, and over the next year, he downloaded and photographed top secret documents from 2 Taiwanese military bases, according to the report, sending them to his handlers through online messaging apps. In return, he was reportedly paid around 170,000. In fact, he was arrested in early 2023 and sentenced to more than 2 years in prison under Taiwan's national security law. But then Chen is far from being an isolated case. According to that report, more than 100 Taiwanese veterans, active duty officers and civil servants have been recruited to spy for China in recent years. Taiwanese authorities admit some may have had access to secret defense plans, now potentially in China's hands. The deputy director of Taiwan's Ministry of Justice Investigative Bureau saying that China uses multiple methods to recruit spies, reportedly. The process often starts off with grooming, whining, dining targets, or offering loans to those in financial trouble. When that fails, recruiters turn to online banking scams, dating apps, social media. The goal is always the same, pretty much: intelligence on Taiwan's ability to fight, just to put it simply. And security analysts are warning every leak weakens Taiwan's deterrence in a way. If China knows Taiwan's mobilization timelines, radar coverage, or command structures, for example, it can design an attack to exploit those weaknesses from the very first minute. And in response, Taiwan has tightened its national security laws, restored military trials for active duty personnel, and formally labeled China a foreign hostile force. But then experts are warning the scale of China's espionage effort remains enormous. As China prepares for any future conflict over Taiwan, the battle may not begin with warships or warplanes, but perhaps with spies. Renewed attention on U.S. President Donald Trump's health, including the daily medication choice that he refuses to change, reportedly. Trump takes more aspirin than his doctors recommend, and in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Trump says he plans to keep doing it. He is the oldest man to assume the presidency in U.S. history, remember. He says he feels strong and healthy, and his doctors call his overall condition excellent, while his aides say he maintains a demanding schedule and rarely slows down. But the president acknowledges that the large aspirin dose causes easy bruising. Doctors have advised him to switch to a lower dose. He declined, reportedly, telling the Wall Street Journal that he has taken the same amount for about 25 years and does not want to alter that routine. He believes aspirin helps thin his blood and protect his heart. During the 2024 election campaign, Trump often accused former President Joe Biden, remember, of hiding medical concerns. Today, Trump stands as the second oldest president in U.S. history after Biden stepped away from the 2024 campaign, and questions over his health were also raised, remember. According to the president's physician, Trump takes 2 medications to control cholesterol and uses a prescription cream for a skin condition. The physicians say the aspirin serves as cardiac prevention at 325 milligrams per day, a level higher than the typical low-dose regimen. And a few hours ago, Trump on his Truth Social platform posted that the White House doctors told him that he was in, quote-unquote, perfect health, and his cognitive examination was 100% accurate. That statement on your screen. Now, Trump's health has also garnered increased public attention at the same time, especially over the past few months. There have been several instances recently where bruising was noticed on his hands during public appearances. We have been reporting about that. The White House has attributed Trump's bruising to frequent handshakes. According to reports, Trump underwent brain imaging in October. The White House described it as a preventive MRI, but later Trump and his doctor clarified it was a CT scan. There have also been instances recently where Trump was captured with his eyes closed during public events. However, it's important to say here that there have been no confirmations on any ailments related to Trump. And in that interview, Trump said he had plenty of energy, crediting it to his parents, who he said were energetic until their old age. In 2017, a newly launched social media giant changed the way we consume content. If short videos dominate your timeline today, TikTok deserves the credit, but it steadily lost its first mover advantage in a way to a new competitor, Meta. To counter the influence of TikTok, Reels, a short-time video feature, was launched by the Meta platform Instagram in 2020, followed by Facebook a year later. But they long struggled to compete. By 2022, Instagram users spent one-tenth of the time watching Reels, one-tenth, as they did on TikTok. However, Meta has turned the corner now. Instagram and Facebook, which have a cumulative user base of 6.7 billion, are now estimated to have a yearly revenue of $50 billion from Reels alone. In contrast, TikTok is likely to rake in only $17 billion. On the other hand, YouTube ranking a close second, with prospective annual advertising earnings of $46 billion. Meta has credited this turnaround to promoting original content, paying creators to post on the platforms, and also improving its algorithm reportedly. As a result, an average Instagram user is now spending 27 minutes a day watching Reels, as compared to 21 minutes for YouTube Shorts, reportedly. Meta's success also raising a rather uncomfortable question in a way. While it monetizes content to its benefit, is the content creator getting the due? If we look at the money earned per 1,000 views on a video, an Instagram user gets only 1 to 10 cents reportedly. In contrast, YouTube fares much better, as users earn anything in the range of $1 to $15 reportedly. TikTok users also earn a small sum. The social media giant is not relenting, though. Having conquered the Reel space, Meta has now decided to enter TV. Instagram will soon be launched on Amazon Fire TV devices in the US. And this is seen as a direct challenge to YouTube, which is the most watched video provider on TV. Even as Meta continues this expansion, the question still is whether content creators will continue to get a raw deal in a way. Tragedy struck South Africa. 41 young men lost their lives in circumcision ceremonies. A revered passage to adulthood there turned deadly, unveiling risks in time-honored tradition. Our correspondent, Calvin Ongmo, getting you the complete story.
The procedures were done as part of traditional initiation, a rite of passage into manhood for young men from various ethnic groups. Blades flash in the bush. over 40 young men die in South Africa from circumcision. Eastern Cape weeps. Summer season claims lives again. The process is a deeply guarded secret, a period of isolation where young boys are taken into the bush. They are housed in temporary huts. For weeks, they are cut off from the modern world. It is a time of intense discipline, teaching, and physical endurance. At the heart of this journey is the circumcision, a physical sacrifice intended to forge a man out of a boy. South African law requires initiation schools and traditional surgeons to be registered and to follow health and safety standards. Yet, illegal, unregulated schools continue to operate, often driven by financial incentives and lax oversight. The government promises to halt the illegal practices.
Minister Hlabisa has indeed announced stricter measures to prevent further deaths during customary initiation seasons, following the tragic loss of 41 initiates and 41 arrests linked to initiation offences. Measures include compulsory training and registration of traditional surgeons and enforcement of parental accountability.
The initiation is a cornerstone of identity for many ethnic groups, a bond that connects the living to the ancestors. Yet, as the death toll rises, the nation is forced to ask a harrowing question. How do you protect a tradition when the very lives it is meant to celebrate are being lost? The age-old, deeply rooted tradition is very secretive, where women and outsiders are not allowed. The young men are taken to mountains like these, if you can see or not in my background, and the ritual is performed there. But in recent times, large number of deaths from these schools have raised questions and have prompted the authorities to investigate and send a message to all the illegal operators of the initiation schools to cease their activities immediately. One life lost is one too many. Every initiate deserves a safe return home, transformed and prepared to embrace the responsibilities of manhood. But unfortunately, it's not the case with everyone. This is Kaldan Omo from Johannesburg, South Africa for WION, World is One.
India's fast food landscape is quietly reshaping itself, and consumers may soon feel the effects at their nearest KFC or Pizza Hut. The companies that run these brands in India are coming together at a time when competition from newer brands threatens their business model. Volatile food prices, higher rents, steeper wages, delivery discounts have made the fast food business less profitable in a way. Both companies that run KFC and Pizza Hut are loss-making, and the merger is more about survival than ambitions to scale. Global chains and local operators continue to fight for the same price-sensitive customer. In fact, this consolidation suggesting that standalone growth is getting harder and that brands now need shared kitchens in a way, shared supply chains, shared costs to stay relevant. For consumers, this means being served Kentucky chicken along with their pizzas in a way. As competition intensifies, it could also translate into more combo deals and reduced spending, perhaps. Experts say the real test will be quite simple: better value or higher prices. If the merger leads to smoother operations and sharper pricing, diners may benefit. If not, it risks reinforcing the feeling that eating out has become a luxury rather than a casual choice. How far will you go to look a certain way, or perhaps change the way you look? Our story is about eyelids. Wait till I explain this. It's actually about a trend where young women are getting a cosmetic eyelid lift. It's a procedure called blepharoplasty. A beauty trend, in a way, which has been gaining popularity. Simply put, it can make you look younger, give a more refreshed appearance. It basically involves removing excess skin and repositioning the fat around the upper and or lower lids. In case you thought only the older population would opt for something like this, think again. It's not just about fighting aging in that case. Patients, even in their late 20s and 30s, are reportedly opting for it. The thing is, with the amount of time, attention, scrutiny, concern that is spent on how one looks and all sorts of beauty standards and trends out there, it's very easy for people to want to change some part of how they look, or many parts, perhaps. This procedure that was once considered a secret anti-aging tactic for celebrities and famous personalities in some cases has come a long way. And that's the extent to which beauty trends have now reached today. Of course, there's a long list of procedures or beauty trends or practices linked to one's appearance that have been doing the rounds, making their presence felt. But are the days of being comfortable in your own skin long gone? Is it too late to even ask that question? What do you feel about these so-called beauty standards? To what extent does your appearance affect your confidence levels? Would you consider getting your eyelids altered to look a certain way, or perhaps to look younger? Let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you. For now, for those who were not aware that a concept like this even existed, it's definitely an eye-opening trend. Let me now ask you, what are your predictions for this year? What is 2026 going to look like? Perhaps a happy future, financial or relationship gains, something else entirely? What if I told you there is a prediction of a turbulent year, one marked by upheaval, disaster, the threat of war? I'm not the one saying that. 16th century French philosopher is, and his followers are matching many of his cryptic verses with events unfolding today or ones that they think appear to draw closer. One prediction by the astrologer speaks of a great man struck by a thunderbolt, and his supporters interpret this as an assassination attempt or a sudden collapse of political power. Nothing confirms that, but speculation continues, of course, all sorts of theories doing the rounds. Prophecy never dies after all, and it has a way of lingering on. Another verse focuses on Switzerland, specifically predicting that it would, quote-unquote, overflow with blood after an act of favor. A fire at that ski resort has left at least 40 people dead there, over 100 injured during a New Year's celebration. And the incident is sparking various claims from conspiracy theorists, linking the blaze to that prophecy. The astrologer also wrote about a potential great war lasting 7 months, and many are linking this to the rising global tensions from the Russia-Ukraine war, of course, to friction across West Asia and beyond, fearing how just a small spark could lead farther than anyone intends. At sea, he describes 7 ships locked in deadly confrontation, a vision that some now are associating with the escalating disputes in the South China Sea. No war has broken out, of course, but every naval maneuver carries a lot of risk and a quiet sense of things unfolding. And then there is the prophecy of a swarm of bees, leading to a plethora of interpretations of all kinds. Followers see it as a metaphor for covert military operations or drone warfare, to even authoritarian power rising. And this particular metaphor seems to have divided his followers the most, primarily due to lack of clear context. Now, it's important to remember the astrologer lived through plague, loss, instability, his writings reflecting the fears of his time. People still search his verses for clues, sometimes for comfort, sometimes out of curiosity, and sometimes because mystery simply feels more dramatic than reality. But history also brings perspective. In 2025, interpretations of his prophecies predicted the end of the Russia-Ukraine war and even a massive asteroid strike, neither of which happened. So as 2026 unfolds, pay attention to the facts and remember, predictions, even poetic ones, can never replace actual happenings or reality. Over to the world of cricket now. Usman Khwaja has announced his retirement from international cricket, the 39-year-old saying the 5th Ashes Test in Sydney will be the last, and called out racism that he experienced throughout his career. The left-hander made his announcement at the Sydney Cricket Ground on Thursday. In a rather emotional 50-minute-long news conference attended by his wife, 2 daughters and parents, the 39-year-old will play his 88th Test in the Ashes finale against England starting on Sunday. It's the same ground, remember, where he made his debut against the same opponents in 2011. Khwaja was born in Pakistan before being raised in Sydney from the age of 5. He moved to Sydney. He became the first Muslim to play Test cricket for Australia when he replaced Ricky Ponting during England's 3-1 series win 15 years ago. During this Ashes series, Khwaja injured his back in the first Test in Perth and missed the second match. He was initially dropped for the third Test in Adelaide, but was recalled late after Steve Smith fell ill. Batting at number 4, Khwaja scored 82 and 40, helping Australia win the match and retain the Ashes. During the presser, Khwaja also spoke about being criticised earlier in the series after playing golf before the first Test, and later suffering back spasms, saying he feels he is treated differently. Listen.
And the way everyone came at me about my preparation, and it was quite personal in terms of, things like he's not committed to the team. He was only worried about himself. He played this golf comp the day before. He's selfish. He doesn't train hard enough. He didn't train the day before the game. He's lazy. These are the same stereotypes, the racial stereotypes I've grown up with my whole life.
Khwaja has played in 87 Tests for the Baggy Greens, scoring 6,206 runs at an average of 43.39. He was also part of the Australia team that won the World Test Championship in 2023. Despite having a successful career with Australia, to say the least, Khwaja claims he has suffered continuous racial vilification.
Yeah, trust me. The 20 years being Western Sydney boy in the 90s, I heard some stuff. I can't say it here, but I copped a lot of racial vilification during that time, and I feel like we're in a lot better inclusive as a society now than we've been before. But there's still a little bit way to go because Australian cricket is still very white in a lot of respects. But that's not a bad thing. We just have to accept that and say, all right, how do we make it more inclusive? That's what you have to do. And then you just try to work towards it. And it might take time, but as long as you're working towards it, you can't really do much more than that.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good weekend.
From Avengers Doomsday to Ramayana Part 1, know all about the big budget releases of 2026.
It's your boy Flipperachi from Outlaw Productions.
Meet Bahraini rapper Flipperachi as he talks about fast love. And find out why India is emerging as the world's go-to concert hub. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Vielleicht nur